Welcome back to another Thursday devotional video. Today we are closing the book of Ephesians, chapters 5 and 6, and there's a lot of good stuff here. In Ephesians 5, this is where Paul gives the example of how wives and husbands are supposed to love each other, and it's just an amazing passage. That's not what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on another well-known passage, the armor of God. And maybe this is something that you or your kids had different like coloring pages for. I know I've seen a lot of them where it's you're coloring the different pieces of armor. When I was a little kid, my mom dressed me up for Halloween as a soldier in the Lord's army. Maybe some of you were that way or had that done for your kids as well. But this is a little bit different from how we think of a normal soldier. It is fair to think of ourselves as soldiers in the Lord's army, but not in the same way as we think of soldiers today. Not even in the same way exactly as they would have thought of soldiers back then. Paul is giving this analogy here. He's taking how a soldier would have dressed, and he's taking each piece and comparing it to something else, something spiritual. And that's important because, as Paul says in Ephesians 6, put on the whole armor of God so we may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the ruler, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So when we think of ourselves as soldiers, we don't think of ourselves as fighting with flesh and blood. We're not called to be soldiers who go and like the Crusades, right? We're not called to go and be physical soldiers. Our war is with the devil, the one who is waging war against all humanity spiritually, and his goal is to keep people in unbelief. That is what our battle is against. It's not with flesh and blood, but it's with the devil and his demons. So Paul gives the armor that we're supposed to put on. He says, "Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with perseverance, making supplication for all the saints." So Paul is giving us different, he's taking, again, the pieces of armor and how the soldier would have dressed themselves, and he's comparing it to different spiritual aspects. The belt of truth. We put on God's truth around us. Think about what a belt does. It's at the center of your body, and it keeps your clothes together. It keeps your shirt tucked in for us today, and it keeps your pants pulled up. Well, God's truth fastened around us is what holds us together. Another one that he gives is the shield of faith. This is something that Martin Luther would talk about. The shield of faith and Paul says, that extinguishes the darts of the enemy, the flaming darts. So we're not using these things against flesh and blood. We're using the things that God has given us, his truth, his word, the peace that the gospel brings, the sword of the Spirit, all these things to ultimately more so defend and cut down the lies of Satan. And so it's important for us to remember that we do not fight with flesh and blood, but with the devil. And, the victory ultimately is won for us by Christ. But it is so important to think of ourselves as soldiers because, Paul is saying these things are important to us. If we do not equip ourselves, if we don't have the truth around us, if we don't have the shield of faith that protects us, take out the illustration altogether, but if we don't have those things, the devil can assail us. And so These things are given to us by God to equip us to withstand the devil. All because of and centered in what Christ has done for us. So put on the full armor of God. And may God bless the rest of your day.